Hello everyone! Today we'll be making these incredibly savory cheese and garlic scones. They couldn't be easier. Seriously, look at these ingredients and tell me you don't already have at least half of them in the house. All you're gonna need: some salt, yogurt, mustard powder, some flour, butter, spring onions, cheese, either cheddar, red Leicester, or a nice mix of both, some brown sugar, and some baking powder, so there's really no excuse to deprive yourself of these amazing snacks. Alright, so to start, you're going to want to crack one large egg into a measuring jug, and then add to this 4 tablespoons of natural yogurt. We're using lactose free here, but that's really not necessary, it's just a matter of personal preference. You'll mix them well using a fork to make sure there are no hard lumps left, and after this you're going to want to cut your cheese, about 75 grams of matured cheddar, and the same for the red Leicester. Cut them into around 1 centimeter cubes. These don't need to be very perfect or very precise, but the smaller and more consistently sized they are, the better the scones will come out in the end. For an extra touch, you can finely grate a little bit of parmesan either into the dough or onto the scones themselves right in the end before they bake. It'll give them a bit of a harder and crumblier crust that will be really nice. So yeah, we're using a variety of cheeses here that have really complementing flavors. And you're gonna want to do the same process for your butter. About 50 grams of unsalted or salted butter, really, it's up to you. And cut them into same sized cubes. After this, you're gonna want to get 3 garlic cloves, crush them and peel them, and chop them really finely. The smaller the bits of garlic are, the stronger the flavor will come through in the end after it's all baked. Gonna want to finely chop 2 spring onions that you will add onto the dough right before it goes into bake. So for combining the dry ingredients, you'll add in 200 grams of plain flour, about 2 teaspoons of baking powder, same for the brown sugar, around 2 teaspoons, and 2 teaspoons of mustard powder. This is probably not very popular with everyone, but the mustard powder really gives these scones this very deep flavor that comes through really well. So you'll want to mix all of these dry ingredients thoroughly before adding anything else in. And after that, you'll throw in your butter, cubed, and the garlic. To mix in the butter, you're going to want to use your hands just to make sure that it's really well incorporated into the dry ingredients. It'll get all crumbly and quite fine, but this will make sure that the scones consistency, that it holds up in the baking process. After this, you can start adding your cheese in and continuing to mix it all before adding the yogurt and egg mix. Once you do that, the dough will become wet and sticky, but it's really important to keep mixing it until it forms a cohesive lump that will come away from the edges of the bowl with absolutely no difficulty. So one last step before you start shaping these into delicious snacks, you just have to season your dough. Throw in 1 teaspoon of cayenne. This will give it a really nice bit of heat without the scones becoming completely impossible to munch down. And a half a teaspoon of fine salt, just to make sure that all these flavors you've added in already, just make sure they really pop. All there is left to do is throw in the spring onions you've already chopped, mix it in once again, make sure it's all well incorporated, and after that you're just going to start shaping them. Here it really is all about personal preference, but I feel like looking at a dozen of tiny bite-sized scones will always make me happier than just a handful of bigger ones. But that might just be me talking. So roll them into little balls using the palms of your hands, and make sure the cheese cubes aren't poking out the sides too much. We don't want great meltages. Put them into a preheated oven for about 20 minutes, or until you see them turning a lovely golden brown, and make sure to leave a couple of centimeters between each scone to prevent them from gluing to each other.